2 million years ago, the Earth was a raw, untamed wilderness. The air shimmered with heat during the day and turned biting cold at night. The wind carried the scent of rain, of wild grass, of distant fires started by lightning strikes. The ground trembled at times with the thundering steps of migrating herds, and over it all hung a constant awareness, a quiet, unrelenting truth, that danger could come from anywhere, at any moment. On the plains of Africa, a mother crouched low in the tall grass. Her arms tightened around the small, fragile body of her infant, whose tiny hand gripped her hair. Every rustle, every shadow set her heart pounding. She had no claws to fight with, no fur thick enough to hide in the winter's chill, no speed to outrun the great predators, and yet she and her kind would endure. They would protect their young not with teeth or muscle, but with something far more enduring, the will to cooperate, to think, and to love. But this story does not begin here. To understand how that mother came to be, we must go back, far back, to a world after the fall of the dinosaurs, around 60 million years ago. The land was cloaked in thick jungles, steaming with humidity. Giant insects hummed in the air. Strange, small mammals darted among the branches, feeding on fruits and flowers. These were the first primates, our distant cousins. They had grasping hands, forward-facing eyes, and a knack for balancing in the trees. Safety lay in the canopy, away from the large predators prowling below. But even in the treetops, danger was never far. A leap from branch to branch could end in a deadly fall, and snakes or birds of prey could strike without warning. To survive, they developed early versions of a strategy that would one day define humanity, living in groups, warning each other of danger, and working together to protect the young. As the millennia rolled on, the earth began to change. The thick forests retreated in places, replaced by open grasslands and scattered woodlands. Some primates found themselves spending more time on the ground, where the rules of survival were different. The grass hid both food and predators. The open spaces demanded sharper eyes and quicker wits. From this shifting world, around 4 million years ago, emerged Australopithecus afarensis. Imagine a figure no taller than a child today, with long arms, a jutting jaw, and eyes alert to every movement. She walked on 2 legs, a revolutionary step in our evolutionary journey. This upright posture freed her hands to carry food, tools, and most importantly, her children. Life on the savannah was unforgiving. A mother's arms became a cradle and a shield. A baby was almost never put down. To do so was to risk its life. Groups worked together. Some foraged, others kept watch, and the sharpest-eyed members scanned the horizon for the faintest ripple of movement in the grass. Around 2.5 million years ago, another figure stepped onto the stage. Homo habilis, handyman, still small, still vulnerable, but with a mind sharper than before. These were the first toolmakers. They learned to strike one stone against another, shaping sharp flakes that could cut meat from bone or split open nuts. With these tools, they could access food no predator could steal, marrow inside bones, hidden deep where teeth could not reach. But these tools also served another purpose. They were weapons. A thrown rock could startle a lion. A sharp flake could make a predator think twice before attacking, and as tools improved, so did the ability to protect the young. But protection required more than tools. It needed planning, and it needed cooperation. By about 1.8 million years ago, Homo erectus had mastered both. They were taller, stronger, and able to travel incredible distances. They followed the herds across continents from Africa into Asia and Europe, but their greatest invention was fire. At first, fire might have been something they stole, a smoldering branch carried back from a lightning strike, but eventually they learned to create it themselves. Fire was more than warmth. It was safety. The glow kept predators at bay. The smoke drove away biting insects, and cooked food provided more energy, feeding their growing brains. Picture a cold night in the Pleistocene, flames flickering in the darkness, shadows dancing on the walls of a cave, children huddled close to their parents. Outside, in the dark, the eyes of predators gleamed, but they kept their distance. Inside the circle of light, there was safety, warmth, and the beginnings of something that felt like home. Hundreds of thousands of years later, in the icy expanses of Ice Age Europe, the Neanderthals thrived. They were powerful, muscular, and resilient. Their hands shaped tools of stone and bone, and they hunted in coordinated groups, taking down enormous prey like mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses. But they were not just hunters, they were caregivers. Archaeological evidence tells us they looked after their injured and sick, sometimes for years. They buried their dead with care. In the heart of winter, when snowstorms howled outside, Neanderthal children would be kept close to the fire, wrapped in animal hides, their laughter echoing off cave walls. Every adult in the group took responsibility for their safety. In a world where survival was uncertain, the value of each child was beyond measure. Then about 300,000 years ago, our own species appeared, Homo sapiens. We were different. We had lighter builds and larger brains. But our greatest gift was language. We could share knowledge in ways no other creature could. We could describe danger in detail, where it was, what it looked like, how to avoid it. We could plan hunts days in advance. We could teach the young complex skills long before they needed them. And we could tell stories that preserved the wisdom of generations, stories that gave meaning to life and death, stories that bound communities together. With these abilities, we spread across the globe. We crossed deserts, scaled mountains, and sailed open seas. We left our marks on cave walls in vivid paintings of hunts, animals, and dreams. Everywhere we went, we carried the same instinct, to guard our children. Grandparents, siblings, and friends all became part of the safety net. In times of scarcity, the youngest were fed first. In times of war or disaster, the strongest stood between the danger and the vulnerable. 10,000 years ago, humans began to farm. Settlements grew into villages, then towns, then cities. The threats changed. Wild predators were replaced by famine, disease, and sometimes the cruelty of other humans. But the instinct to protect never faded. A child's cry could still stop a conversation, still send adults running. A threat to one child could unite an entire community. And that same instinct, the ancient fire of protection, still burns in us today. Our survival was never guaranteed. Many human species once walked the earth, but only one remains. We are here because our ancestors fought for the future. Every mother who wrapped her child in her arms against the cold. Every father who stood watch through the night. Every group that worked together to fend off danger. Every decision to protect rather than abandon shaped the path to us. Now we live in an age our ancestors could never have imagined. We can light entire cities with the flick of a switch. We can send voices across the globe in an instant. We can explore the stars, but we also possess the power to destroy ourselves. The same instinct that kept our children alive for millions of years will decide what comes next. Will we use our tools, our fire, our cooperation to create a world worthy of them, or to end the story here? The journey of humanity is not just a history of survival. It is the history of protection, of love, of the unbreakable bond between generations. And just as it was on the African plains millions of years ago, the survival of humanity may still depend on one simple truth: we must never let go.